Hi folks, welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. I don't know if you read about the hiring recently or a transfer from Department of Homeland Security, but General John Kelly has just been made Chief of Staff to Trump. And what I wanted to bring your attention to is not only that this guy is a major bad dude and ran Guantanamo Bay, helped command the invasion for lies to South Commander of Iraq invasion of weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist, and over 2 million brown people have died because of it. But also that all this noise of Trump firing and hiring, nothing is by chance. It's all being planned that way. It's the magician's trick of make you look at the right hand while the left hand is doing the deceiving. Now here you see the Congressional Medal of Honor to our war heroes, and it's satanic. These guys are promoting Satanism. This is what they do. This is who the generals are that went to the Georgetown Emerson School, Foreign Service School, the Jesuit schools, okay? And if you can see right here, you see the signing of Bulldog Mattis, General, and there's the satanic signs right there in the background, Baphomet as well. So the hiring of John Kelly is being brought over from the Department of Homeland Security into the Chief of Staff of Obama. So now you have General Mattis, who's the Secretary of Defense. You have the National Security Advisor. It was Flynn. He got replaced with the Russian nonsense, and now he's being put in there into the NSA. And so you have three huge bad generals, badass generals, being brought right into the White House, right next door to Trump. We're trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt in this country. We have no way to get out. It's going to be an ugly crash, and they're bringing in the military brass to suppress us, is what I feel is going on right now. But also I want to bring your attention to the satanic aspects. Here's the pentagram that was laid out in Washington, D.C., and also that you see the compass in the square, the Freemasonic signs. And I also want to bring your attention to they're putting in these Baphomet devil satanic statues. One they tried to put in Oklahoma City, and they installed one in Detroit, Michigan. This was done last year. So the devil is being put into the United States. They're calling their shots. 9/11 was the first World War III shot, and now they're following through. And I believe that it's Trump and all his generals that are going to be making war on the people of the United States. But let's look at this Baphomet statue for a sec.
Hundreds of people turned out tonight for the unveiling of a very controversial statue.
Yeah, it really is. The Satanic Temple of Detroit revealed the one-ton bronze statue. Their message, they say, more about laws protecting religious freedom than about Satan. Priya Mann joins us live. Priya, I know there were some protesters out there this evening.
To get tickets, they were told to step back, which they did. The Satan statue will be unveiled tonight at a secret location. As a small group of protesters prayed, hundreds waited for tickets to the unveiling of an 8-foot-tall bronze statue of a goat-headed Satan. Most of the people here agree with the teachings of the Satanic Temple, the group responsible for the event.
It's here, it's in Detroit, and this is fantastic that we get to experience this and we get to see this amazing statue be unveiled for all the world to see.
Took the heavy rainfall as some sort of sign and even brought their own statue of an angel crushing the devil.
Western culture, Western civilization was built by the Catholic Church. So for them to come out and want to make a statement that all of this is horrible, it's rotten, they don't, I feel sorry for them. I really, really feel sorry for them.
The Satanic Temple says the statue is a symbol for what they advocate, the separation of church and state.
This country was based on religious freedom, and tonight in what the temple is doing, this is a celebration of true religious freedom.
And as I said previously, they tried to put it in Oklahoma City when they tried to put the Baphomet statue there, and they were denied and had to go up to Detroit. So there's serious intention. What I also want to bring your attention to is the Temple of Set. It's a military order in the United States military run by a General Aquino. General Aquino is another very dark, dark person. Let's find out about him.
Intelligence agencies have infiltrated and created some satanic groups, with the resurgence of these groups beginning in 1966, particularly with the birth of the Church of Satan, founded by Anton LaVey. LaVey studied criminology in San Francisco and worked in the San Francisco Police Department Crime Lab. He also worked as an informant for Interpol. Prior to the Church of Satan, LaVey ran a group called the Magic Circle. LaVey's most famous associate is the National Security Agency General Michael Aquino. At the time of his membership in LaVey's group, Aquino was an Army specialist in intelligence and psychological warfare. In the late 1980s, Aquino was accused by the San Francisco Police Department of being involved in a satanic child molestation ring centered on the daycare at the Presidio military base where Aquino was stationed at the time. It is important to remember that General Aquino is first and foremost a military intelligence officer with over 40 years' experience in counterinsurgency operations and an expert in psychological warfare. General Aquino's psychological warfare campaign has started or infiltrated cults and other closed systems as part of a concerted effort to control large numbers of people and to destabilize the centers of constitutional and legal authority both here in the United States and in other nations.
Talking to Dr. Aquino and his wife, you are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
Correct.
Now, and how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
The Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968. Mm-hmm. And there was a reasonable amount of curiosity as there along with what exactly is this strange and unusual thing. And I've talked about it in much the same way that I've talked here today on your show about it. Mm-hmm. And other than that, the Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who is, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
So you just go about your Army duties and it's fine and
mm-hmm. I was a follower of the Satanist Church in Chicago here. On Walpurgis Night, I was the head acolyte for that specific ceremony, and at the end of it, we wound up murdering someone. And
a person?
Yes, ma'am. It wasn't anybody that I knew, and I reported it. But once I had reported it and decided that to quit the Satanist Church, I started receiving threatening phone calls. People would come up to my door who I didn't know, and all they'd do is say, go back to the church, and then they'd walk away. They'd never give me their name or address or anything. I received threatening mail. My mail was opened. My little sister was harassed coming to and from school several times.
So what happened in the ritual where someone was murdered? And how were they murdered?
They were stabbed 7 times with knives because
in Chicago?
Yes. It was
what year?
About 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was about 80, 81. Mm-hmm. And the ritual was a witch's Sabbath, and it got out of hand, and the high priest brought out these 7 daggers, and they impaled him in the form of a cross with the 7 daggers.
Was this person impaled against his or her will?
Yes.
Or did they wish to be sacrificed?
No, this was against his will.
Mm-hmm.
In the ocean, chop up the bodies, these things, they sound like they can't be happening. Ted Gunnison, respected law enforcement professional, recently or retired now from the FBI, former regional director of Los Angeles. Do you, sir, believe that these dreadful allegations of babies being sacrificed are true?
I absolutely believe it, without any doubt. Based on the information that's been given to me across the country by numerous survivors and by confidential sources and informants.
Then why didn't you name these people and arrest them? Never a name, never an arrest. These women come out of a group and they insist that they know the people in the group, and yet they do not identify these large mysterious cults. Name them and arrest them and get them off the street.
Does he not make a valid point?
He makes a valid point. The problem with that is, number one, police officers don't believe it. I may believe it. You may believe it. Some people in your audience may believe it. They don't believe it. Number two, if you decide to investigate these people, you have to, number one, handle it from an undercover operation. If you put an undercover operation into effect, then you have, in a sense, your own police officers become involved in these heinous crimes, and they are, of course, become murderers. And in addition to that, if you do decide to investigate these people, it's a lot of work. And many law enforcement officers are apathetic and don't want to get involved.
So this goes all the way back to George Washington. Here you see his monument, and it's in the same form as Baphomet, the devil, Satan, Ahriman, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him. And it's all part of their long-term strategy, folks. The building of the Senate Capitol has George Washington on the apotheosis, and look to his right, who's blowing the trumpet? And here we see George Washington laying the cornerstone in his Freemason full regalia. Who's running the show? But I want to focus now on the cabinet of generals that is in the Trump transition, the big badass dudes. And here you see a picture of him. McFlynn has been replaced by McMaster, running the NSA now and stuff. But let's find out a little bit more about these people. So John Kelly, let's look at his bio here. John Kelly is the designated White House Chief of Staff, former commander of United States South Command, Unified Combatant Command, responsible for American military operations in all of Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. Big hitter, folks. He succeeded Douglas Fraser as commander of U.S. Southern Command in Iraq. Okay? He was appointed to replace Reince Priebus as White House Chief of Staff. How about Bulldog James Mattis here? Retired Marine Corps, previously served as the commander of the United States Central Command, responsible for military operations in the Middle East, Northeast Africa, and Central Asia. NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Transformation. United States Marine Corps Central Command. Mattis was confirmed as Secretary of Defense by the United States Senate on a waiver, as he only had been there 3 years out of active duty, despite U.S. federal law requiring a 7-year cooling off period for retired military personnel to be appointed Secretary of Defense. So they waived the federal law in order to put this mad dog, sycophant, psychopath, killing machine into the White House next door in power, okay? Wake up, folks. This country's under attack, or whatever this thing is we live in. Herbert Raymond McMaster, he is known for his role in the Gulf War, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraq Freedom. These are all the main dudes, folks. This is who's coming after us. This is who's been put in power as Trump's henchmen. And then we go to the last thing, which is Donald Trump's best lines.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So John Kelly, retired general from the Marines, is appointed as the head of Homeland Security. Give us a sense of who this character is.
Well, as you mentioned, I think one of the more egregious things that he's known for is his open support of force feeding of inmates at Guantanamo Bay, and his rebuke of when human rights organizations and civil rights organizations have called him on that, he's basically laughed them off and rebuked them and called their claims ridiculous, that kind of thing's just not happening at Guantanamo Bay. He's also in favor, of course, not closing the prison as well as expanding it, and is a very hardline person as far as his border policies go. And it's important to bear all this in mind, because now he's going to be in charge of the almost 250,000 border security personnel at his disposal and other internal security personnel at his disposal. So, and then his policies are certainly in line with Trump's, where he's obviously anti-immigration and going to be used as a very effective tool in making the border much more militarized, as well as his draconian policies regarding Guantanamo. And then I think another important element to consider is what's that going to mean with the private prison industry in the United States. Certainly, it's going to be a bit of a boon for those investing. There's a reason why the CCA stock, the company formerly known as the CCA, the Corrections Center for America, their stock literally went up almost 50% within days after Trump winning the election. So there's a reason for that, and I think bringing in Kelly is certainly showing people why that's happened, and certainly what Trump's policies are going to be regarding immigration and internal homeland security in the United States.
Right. This is the third general that Trump has chosen to join his cabinet, James Mattis and Michael Flynn for Secretary of Defense and National Security Advisor. Now, how should we interpret this? The previous interview I had done with Vijay Prasad, he said this is shaping up to look like the junta rather than the cabinet. Your thoughts on that?
I would agree with that statement. These people, I wrote an article very recently about retired General Mattis, because this is an individual, just to give you a flavor of where this is going. This is a guy whose name is Mad Dog, and it's because he's consistently shown a blatant disregard for human life during all of his time as an individual very, very high up in the Marine Corps. He made the quote that's now become famous in 2003, the year of the invasion of Iraq, where he said, it's, quote, "It's fun to shoot some people, you know, it's a hell of a hoot." He also, when he was asked during the invasion of Iraq what he was telling the Marines under his command, of which there was a large number, about how to behave in Iraq, he said, quote, "Be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet." So this is the type of individual that Trump is bringing into a position of power. It's also worth noting that this is the guy who, in the wake of the 2005 Haditha massacre, which made international headlines when Marines committed a massacre of 24 unarmed Iraqis. We're talking about small children, women, elderly, even an old man in a wheelchair, all of which were shot at very, very close range multiple times. And then when the 8 Marines that were brought to justice, not justice, but were held responsible for committing the massacre, it was Mattis who was overseeing it, and he basically dismissed it. And these guys, thus far, all of them have gotten off without any charges. And then lastly on Mattis, I was reporting in Iraq at the time during both of the U.S. 2004 sieges of Fallujah, and many of the Marines involved in those sieges were under Mattis' command. And so that makes him responsible for giving orders and responsible for the behavior of those underneath him. And it's worth noting that multiple war crimes were committed during both sieges of Fallujah. I personally saw women and children and elderly being shot, ambulances being deliberately targeted by snipers, as well as missile attacks on them, clinics and hospitals being bombed by U.S. forces during both of those sieges, attacks on mosques, a long line of war crimes, including the use of white phosphorus, which is Pentagon's own admission in the November 2004 siege of Fallujah. 50,000 civilians at least remained inside the city, and yet the military went on and used it anyway. So under his command, just what I've seen personally, multiple war crimes have been committed. And this is the guy, again, whose nickname is Mad Dog, that Trump has brought into his cabinet.
All right, so let's get into a little bit more of these medals in the background, medals of valor that are the stars are hung upside down, representing the stars of Baphomet. And this has significant meaning in the occult world of black magic and sigils and whatnot. And here you see Trump signing behind Ishtar and how the Medal of Valor hung upside down. These guys are all aware that this is going on. They're all a part of it, okay? And so you can't hide from this. But let's find out more about the symbolism of what goes on and why it's so important to understand what the symbology is with these medals, that the star is pointed down and not up.
So it's interesting that this medal happens to have Ishtar right in the middle of it. And the fact that Trump signed it in front of that, which is a pretty big thing since this ban could be leading to war. I'm saying it could be. I'm not saying it's going to. But if you put one and one together, we already see the division going on. We see the divide and conquer. Now, I don't know what kind of war, if it can lead to war with other countries, if it can lead to civil war, civil unrest we're already seeing. But that's what Ishtar stands for. Right? So not only the mother of harlots, but also the goddess of war. And as he signs this, he happens to be right in front of that pentagram that has Ishtar in the middle. Now, the fact that these awards that they give out are pentagrams are just, I mean, you want to talk about unbelievable and unbelievably obvious and right in our faces. It's cool. We just designed it and did that. You know, we threw Ishtar in the middle. You know, the goddess of prostitution. What we're seeing around us is modern day Babylon. And that's not a surprise to anyone that listens to this channel. We see the abominations in front of us every single day. But this is just more of seeing things in plain sight, because there they are hanging on the walls. There we see them honoring soldiers and people by giving them these medals. Everybody applauds and cheers. They don't look at the medal. They don't go, why is it designed that way? What's it stand for? But those of us who are awake know why it's a pentagram. Those of us who are awake know why there's a circle going around it, right? Because the pentagram inside of the circle is what they use when they perform black magic. And having Ishtar directly in the middle of the Medal of Valor is not a coincidence. So the fact that Trump signed this bill in front of this specific medal, to me, is interesting. They choose these things carefully. These pictures that are done are strategically done. Okay, everything is planned out by these people. They think this way. They don't just randomly, do these photo shoots, these movies, these music videos. It's not just random things, random shapes, random symbols in there. They don't just throw it in. It's deliberately there. So Trump signing the immigration ban, which could lead to war, and this is them, as they always do, telling us stuff in plain sight. So could this lead to something? Could this just be a sign of them rubbing it in our faces? We'll see. But in general, these are just more examples of the signs and the symbols that are right in our faces.
The most dangerous form of black magic is the scientific perversion of occult power for the gratification of personal desire. Manly P. Hall. I'll read that again. Listen to this. The most dangerous form of black magic is the scientific perversion of occult power, and I would use the term occult knowledge, for the gratification of personal desires. Is this what is taking place? Of course. You better believe it is. So that's what Hall has to say on the topic of an inverted pentagram, or a pentagram of Pax, a Faustian pentagram. And this is what he's talking about. What Faustian is all about is making a pact with other non-corporeal entities, possibly other dimensional entities. In Goethe's Faust, written in 1808, Mephistopheles was able to enter into Faust's study because Faust's pentagram was poorly made. One of its angles was broken, letting the devil in, letting this demon named Mephistopheles into his study. See, this is about bringing something that is negative, bringing a negative energy or a demonic energy into some place. This is why it's put into the executive branch. It's placed above the executive branch, where the place where a dictator would likely to rise from, that branch of government. There's a reason this was placed here, okay? Mephistopheles says, now I'm going to read a couple of lines from Faust, from Goethe's Faust. Mephistopheles says, "Let me own up, I cannot go away. A little hindrance bids me to stay. The witch's foot upon your sill I see." Witch's foot, or in other words, footprint of the devil. This is what he's talking about. He's talking about the pentagram that Faust inscribed as a mechanism of protection in this ceremonial magic that he was conducting. Faust replies, "The pentagram? That's in your way? You, son of hell, explain to me. If that stays you, how came you in today?" In other words, he's saying, if this is preventing you from leaving, how did you get here? And Mephistopheles says, "Observe it closely. It is not well made. One angle on the outer side of it is just a little open, as you see." So this suggests that while the pentagram is generally understood to be a tool for protection, keeping evil off, keeping it at bay, okay, to ward off or keep evil at bay, a broken pentagram is a symbol of invocation, asking something to come in. It is also a symbol of capturing or containment, a symbolic means of control. The broken pentagram, the Faustian pentagram, a means of a symbol of invocation, capturing, containment, and control. Those are the things it symbolizes. In other words, the open pentagram is a snare for the spirit. And I think I've made my point that this is no accident. People say, make it a point to debunk this by the open arm. That's the crux of the symbol, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't a regular inverted pentagram. It's a Faustian pentagram. But again, non-initiates to any occult knowledge would have no idea of that at all because they don't read. Because they don't read. And once again, you can see in image number 40, the pentagon being the symbol of force, violence, I should say, really, as the heart of America's, quote, defenses, but it's the heart of our aggression, really, is the center of the pentagram, specifically when it is inverted, as you can see in image number 41. See images for today's show, and under that you will see the slideshow images that we're going to be discussing today, continuing to discuss, for the occult mockery of police and military personnel. There are 148 images that go with the entirety of this talk. It has not come to its conclusion. There is still, I guess you could say, powers being turned over to the people who are seeking them, but the fullness of that pact has not been sealed as of yet, represented by the broken arm of that pentagram. Or pentagram represent the 4 elements of earth, air, water, and fire, corresponding respectively to the physical plane, aspects of inherent qualities and characteristics with earth, intellect with air, emotion with water, and will with fire. And then they're ruled over ultimately by the spirit or the quintessence or the 5th element, which represents spirit. And in its proper position, this point would be placed upward over the other 4, not saying that spirit is totally superior to the material world forces, but that it ultimately governs them and is acting as a balance point between them, through which we really need to identify and find balance so that we're not lost and owned by the material world senses. Now, most of the time, dark occultists will take this symbolism and reverse it. It's another thing I want to say about dark occultism in general, is they don't create much on their own. They take what's already there and they pervert and they corrupt. They use things that are there and just change them energetically. They don't really have much of a creative essence to do new things. They just use what somebody else has already used to represent one thing, and then they reverse it. Similar to how the Nazi Party reversed the Vedic symbol of the swastika, which traditionally represented positive solar energy, good fortune, and enlightenment. And they took that, turned it the opposite direction, made it the crooked cross of the SS and the Nazi Party, and they turned it into a symbol of death, bad fortune, destruction, and totalitarianism, which is just a perversion of what it formerly meant. So you'll see this used in control institutions and in dark occult orders, the pentagonal symbolism reversed. Here you see it in the Victoria Police's logo. They're not upholding your rights, folks. They're upholding the divine right to rule of the crown. That's why the crown sits atop the inverted pentagram. The spiritual point is thrust downward into the ground, and they're not upholding anybody's rights but who they consider the sovereign, some clown who thinks that they have the divine right to rule over other people because of the nature of their bloodline that they were born from. You see this done in some fraternal orders, like the Fraternal Order of Police, and in the Women's Masonic affiliate order, the Order of the Eastern Star. Of course, you have the pentagonal symbolism at the pentagram building, the center of intelligence in the United States, and that exactly correlates to the middle of an inverted pentagram. Now, when it comes to inverted pentagonal symbolism or pentagram symbolism, one of the best examples is the street system of Washington, D.C., just above the White House. And again, people will debate this and insist there's nothing to this, and because of a specific reason, which I'll get to in a moment. But this is the White House from a Google Maps image, seen from overhead, and you are, I believe, looking due north is in the upward direction. So directly above, in the northern direction, which Masonically is considered a place of darkness, pointing down toward the White House is an inverted pentagram embedded in the street system. Now, people will say, well, that's not even a complete reverse pentagram. One of the biggest types of pentagrams in dark occult symbolism is known as the Faustian pentagram, particularly used in Satanism and other forms of dark occultism. A Faustian pentagram deliberately leaves one arm absent or broken. And what that symbol represents is a pact with the evil or chaotic force in the world. It represents a pact with the force of entropy and darkness, that power will be delivered unto you and into your hands if you agree essentially to give your life essence or soul over to that force. Hence, the Faustian pentagram is also often referred to as the pentagram of pacts. Now, the people who bash researchers who look at the symbolism in the street system of Washington, D.C. as a form of geomancy, which is what this is, directing energy through architecture and lines of energy on the earth, will say, how could you even say that represents an inverted pentagram when, that arm isn't there, that last part of it isn't there? What I'm trying to explain to you is that makes it all the more indicative that this was a deliberately created design that deliberately left that arm specifically open because it represents a Faustian pentagram. But people who don't look into the dark occult would never understand the concept of the Faustian pentagram, never have come across it at all. It comes from the German play Faust, in which Dr. Faustus sells his soul to the demon Mephistopheles for worldly power.
All right, so let's take a look at Trump, the 45th. 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 means the end, about what he's about. Now, let's just take the word etymology. Now, we got Snowed In by Eric Snowden, Bernie made off with the money, Sex Escapades by Mr. Weiner, the senator. I mean, the names mean something to these people. Obama, bin Laden, Hussein, Barack, Joe Biden, bin Laden. It's all meant to confuse us, folks. It's all about babbling on in our definitions or definitions, okay? That's why we say hell when we say hello. So Trump, to surpass, to beat, to trumping, trumped, to deceive, to cheat. Get it? To blow a trumpet. Gabriel's trumpet, folks. It's all biblical. Last card played in bridge is the trump card at the end of the game. Player's card of a suit ranking above others. So here's a little disturbing for you Trump fans and Rudy Giuliani. One of the ways they have to embarrass everybody is to make them dress as females. This happens to actors in Hollywood, sports. Everybody has to dress a female to prove it. And here's the most powerful man in the world. And here he is, disgustingly, with Sir Mayor Rudy Giuliani in the Knight's Order, giving a little peck on the cheek. Now watch what this guy is going to do. It's just absolutely gross. He's going to motorboat Rudolph Giuliani. Unbelievable. Let's move on. All right, so here's your president doing the Baphomet sign and with all his women showing off and his current wife. I think it's number 3, if I'm not mistaken. The reason he won't release his tax returns because he's paid off a bunch of child pedophilia. Here's him with the cardinal who's in power running the show in between the two powers. Here's the Medal of Valor upside down with the Baphomet Pentagon with Mr. Pence, the Vice President, Roman Catholic, and the general there. Famous quote, Janet Reno, Donald Trump will never be president in my lifetime. They made that come true. Here's him, very, very disturbing pictures with his daughter, saying he'd marry her or be with her. Here's Mr. Trump connected to Jeffrey Epstein with all the pedophiles, along with Clinton and the rest of these guys. I mean, this is who's running the show. And here's all his escapades, Trump with all the child pedophilia and all the people he's been involved with. I mean, this is the guy running the show. All right? It's sick. Here's, I think this is Family Guy with pre-predictive programming showing exactly how it works. This is all made. This is why I get back to the point that I made here at the beginning, that nothing that happens is politics, is by accident.
Tonight, we honor a self-made millionaire. He started with nothing, worked hard, and made a fortune. That man is Fred Trump, Donald's dad.
Donald is very happy with his lovely wife, insert name here.
Trump bangs a supermodel, he closes his eyes and imagines he's jerking off.
Donald say he wants to run for president and move on into the White House. Why not? It wouldn't be the first time you pushed a black family out of their home.
And here's another one. It's pronounced, I am fucking delusional, not I am running for president.
Donald Trump is not only one of my oldest, dearest friends, he's also an American success story. When he graduated college, he put his shoulder to the wheel, nose to the grindstone, borrowed $6 billion from his father, and started a career.
You've ruined more models' lives than bulimia. You've disappointed more women than Sex and the City 2.
Donald Trump, without a doubt, you're a New York landmark, which means it's only a matter of time until you bulldoze yourself to build some gaudy, tacky monstrosity and put your name on it.
Please welcome the second worst tragedy ever to hit New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald J. Trump.